those little moments of like the kids running around, those are completely unstaged.
I'm very pleased today, very excited to be speaking with Anna Fahr, the director of Valley of Exile. Anna, thank you so much for the time. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. It is a very special film. It is absolutely uh, gripping and horrifying and feels so authentic. Where did the film come from? Why did you want to tell this story?
I mean, I was living in Lebanon in 2012. I was teaching there at the Lebanese American University, and I was there when the Syrian war started, when tens of thousands of refugees were flooding into Lebanon. And so I started working on various film projects, including a narrative short called Transit Game that was completed in 2014. And it was around that time that I started writing Valley of Exile, which, as you know, is a story about two sisters. I myself am a sister, so the story is in some ways deeply personal to me because it basically explores, the tough choices that young women make at different stages of their lives. And these two sisters just happen to be refugees. So I decided to sort of set the story against the backdrop of the Syrian war and sort of what happens when these young girls end up in a refugee camp in Lebanon, which is where we shot the film.
Yeah, let's talk about that for a minute. I mean, certainly, like you said, you're from there, you've seen the space, but what was it like filming in the one of the actual camps?
It was a very challenging experience because we were filming there during COVID 2021. We obviously needed to gain the support of the community, so we went to several different camps before we settled on the one that we decided to film in, and yeah, so it was a very challenging process, but fortunately the community welcomed us with open arms. They participated in the production. We had, kids, appear in the film on camera. We had residents take part in the, production process as members of our crew. So we were happy to support the community as best we could financially. But all that to say, it was also very, very challenging because we were working under immense, pressure when Lebanon was going through an economic collapse. There was also the port blast that happened the year before. So it's a country that's been going through a lot in the last several years.
Absolutely. And you said that the residents themselves were involved,
Yeah.
and that's wonderful. That certainly brings a level of authenticity to it as well. What was their response to being a part of it and seeing the film if they've seen the film?
They haven't seen it yet.
Okay.
It's been on its festival tour, and we are hoping to organize a screening in the next couple months. Many of my production team, my producing partner, is still in Lebanon, and so we're in talks with trying to host a screening in the camp, bring the film back to the camp where it was filmed. So that's hopefully gonna happen. And in terms of the reaction, they were really on board. I mean, we had like there's one guy who's like the shawish, we called him Abu Joma, and he was the one basically sort of like the go-between our production team and the residents. And so he would help us arrange for, our tent to be constructed. So his son was among the group of builders that built the actual tent that we filmed in. And yeah, like I said, they were generous with their what they could offer us, and in return, we wanted to support them financially. We rented props from the residents of the camp, so a lot of the details in the art direction are authentic to that location. Many people are surprised because the tent is so pretty, like it's like nicely decorated. But many people, lived in that way. Like they took pride in their homes, even though these were makeshift, construction. people still took pride and tried to create a home for themselves, even though it was a temporary home that has effectively, in some ways, turned into a semi-permanent, you know, form of accommodation for tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of refugees in Lebanon.
And I hope I say this well. One of the things I noted about the characters and the way that it is people trying to live their lives well, even in the midst of difficult circumstances. Like the kids are just playing soccer and they're laughing and you're sitting there and you realize there's a much bigger thing. This is tremendously troubled situation and yet you get the sense of people trying to make the best of this difficult, incredibly painful time.
Mm-hmm. And that those little moments of like the kids running around, those are completely unstaged because those kids live there. They were part of that world, and we wanted to incorporate them. We wanted to include them as part of the fictitious, story that we were telling. But like you said, life goes on. Kids are kids, and they will, adapt to even the most dire situations. But that being said, it isn't a type of situation that one wants to be in indefinitely. It's definitely something that has been a strain not only on the Syrians living in these refugee camps, but on the Lebanese local Lebanese population that has absorbed sort of the biggest portion per capita of refugees. But we did want to show sort of the mundane, the daily life, things that we often don't get to see because we're so used to seeing some of the more gritty, harsher images coming out of, images of refugee settlements and places like that.
And I think that adds to the film. There's a wonderful balances. I don't know if balance is a word I want to use, but we see the vitality of the people that live there, but also the incredible struggle in doing so. And I think that really gives it a sense of authenticity. Um, I'd love to talk about Maria and Hala, who are wonderful in this film. How did they come to be a part of it, and did their journeys contribute to the evolution of their characters or the story?
Yeah, I mean, Maria and Hala are both Syrian who came to Lebanon in the early years of the conflict. So Hala came from Homs with her family, and Homs was a city that was heavily bombarded. So she fled the war, wound up in Lebanon with her family. She was a young girl, probably around 10 years old at the time when she came to Lebanon. And Maria came, I think, is probably in her early 20s because Maria is a little bit older. And so both Maria and Hala had experienced what it was like to flee and what it was like to have to rebuild their lives. And so yeah, I mean, I think that was part, obviously, of the casting, was to find actresses who not only could convey these characters, but also bring a level of authenticity to the roles. And we worked with a Syrian casting director, Ayman Hamawi, and he was able to kind of look within his community of Syrian actors and people that he knew and identify, a handful of young women. We also looked among the Lebanese acting community. So we auditioned Lebanese actors and we auditioned Syrian actors. And then basically it came down to finding two that could really take on these characters. And neither Hala nor Maria had ever acted before in a movie. So it was a big leap of faith. But I think what they brought to the screen partly was from a very rigorous rehearsal process with myself, an acting coach that I was working with, Eline James, and to help them sort of build their characters and prepare and sort of gain the tools and techniques that they needed because they'd never been on a set before.
Mm.
But also part of it was from their authentic journey as young women who had fled a war and who had experienced that journey themselves as refugees in Lebanon.
And you know, one of the things I love about this film too is its emphasis on the women in this. I mean, the men are in it, but it really is not just even the story of sisters, but certainly the story of the women in this community. And there's a strength there as they continue to struggle. It's absolutely beautiful from their perspective.
Thank you. Yeah, no, it was very much a female driven story, and it was also female led behind the scenes. My producing partners are predominantly women. My producing partner, Lara Abu Saifan, Palestinian Lebanese, based in Beirut. My line producer, Zaina Badran. So, we were this team of women that really kind of spearheaded and pushed this story forward. And the story is very much about sisterhood and the women that we turn to and lean on for support in the absence of men. And I think that is the case for women anywhere in any conflict zone. Often it's the men who go off and fight, and it's the women who have to sort of pick up the pieces and rebuild. And That was the world that these young women inhabited during that period.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things I wanted to ask you too, there's a very interesting line in through the film where they talk about at a certain point you realize you're not in control.
Hmm.
And I wanted to ask you about that tension of hope in hopeless circumstances, because you sense that there is a genuine belief amongst these two sisters that, you know, we need to keep fighting, we need to look forward, we need to move on, we need to find what's more, but they keep finding obstacles along the way. From your conversations with them, from your experience, from the experiences of Maria and Hala, what is it like to cling to hope in circumstances that just seem overwhelming?
Hmm. I mean, it's very difficult. Hala is still in Lebanon. She's Syrian, so that limits her opportunities for work. She's a student, she's in law school. So, here's a young woman who is not only a brilliant, star, in my humble opinion, or star in the making, but she's also a young, law student.
Yeah.
She has so much to offer. She has so much to give. Any country would be lucky to have her. And she's struggling to get a visa to attend festival screenings. And that's just the brutal reality of the world we live in that denies some people access to the freedom to travel, and others the privilege of being able to go wherever they want, whenever they want. Maria was fortunately granted asylum, so she's been living in France for the last year, and she's now on tour. She's singing in a band, so she's a talented singer and songwriter, and so she's been making her way. I think what both Hala and Maria have in common is that they um, will always, keep finding ways of pursuing their dreams in whatever shape that takes. And I hope to be able to help them along the way in whatever way I can. But the tough reality is that as refugees, it's very difficult. It's very difficult, and not only for refugees, but also ordinary Lebanese who are not really happy about the circumstances that they're dealing with are also struggling. Yeah, so in some ways, it's almost like despair is not an option. They have to keep going. They have to find ways. And I admire that strength and determination.
Absolutely, absolutely, and we see it here in this film in these characters as well. Um, and I know we're starting to run out of time, but just in your mind, what do you hope that people can learn from stories like Valley of Exile?
I mean, I just hope that, especially right now, with what we're seeing in our part of the world, in the Middle East, people are reminded that these are human lives. Each individual life has worth and has value, and they're not just numbers; they're human beings. They deserve our care. They deserve our empathy. I hope that's something that will resonate with audiences and allow them, when they see these gruesome images that are coming up day after day after day, that they're more than just, a nameless face. These are people, and I think Valley of Exile speaks to the humanity behind these conflicts that seem almost never ending.
Yeah, absolutely. Honestly, I appreciate your time and I appreciate your work. Valley of
Thank you.
Exile.
Appreciate it. Thanks for taking the time as well. And yeah, I'm hoping that more and more people will hear about the film and come out and support it.
Absolutely, I do as well. Thank you so much for your time. Have a great day.
Thank you. Appreciate it. You too.
Thank you.
Like you never